welcome to another episode of Codo Cinema, the podcast show where I talk about movies. I'm your host, Mark Codo, aka Codoman. Well, folks, we are back for another exciting episode. For this episode, I'm going to talk about a movie from my childhood because apparently a childhood memory of mine has been unlocked, and this movie from my childhood I'm going to talk about is the 2012 Lorax movie. Now, of course, the Lorax, also known as Dr. Seuss's The Lorax, is a 2012 American animated musical fantasy comedy film produced by Universal Pictures and Illumination Entertainment and distributed by Universal. 2012's The Lorax is the film's second screen adaptation of Dr. Seuss's 1971 children's book, The Lorax, following the 1972 animated television special. This movie is directed by Chris Renaud, co-directed by Kyle Balda, produced by Chris Melandandri and Jeanette Healy, and written by the writing team of Cinco Paul and Kevin Dario, who also served as executive producers alongside Dr. Seuss's widow, Audrey Geisel. The film has an all-star cast which includes Danny DeVito, Ed Helms, Zac Efron, Taylor Swift, Rob Riggle, Jenny Slate, and Betty White. And before I dive deep into the movie a little more, to those who are listening, I just want to say welcome to Codo Cinema, and if you are listening to this on YouTube, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button for more content. It is under my YouTube channel, Mark Codo, MarkCodo, or if you're on YouTube looking for Codo Cinema, just type in Codo Cinema, and then just type in Codo Cinema, CODOCINEMA, and it will pop up once you type it in. So don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button for more content. Plus, Codo Cinema is also on Spotify and Podbean as well. So don't forget to hit the follow button on Spotify and Podbean as well. And there you have it, folks. Now let's get back to the movie. Now, you guys are probably wondering, how is this movie a part of my childhood? Well, apparently I was 13 years old when I first saw this movie in theaters, and around that time I was in middle school, and it was one of those movies I really got to see, and for the most part I really enjoyed it. Like I said, I was in middle school and I was 13 years old. I really enjoyed this movie. I thought this movie was really fun. Now, as an adult, yes, I still check out a few Dr. Seuss movies. In fact, to those who are listening, I have already covered the two Dr. Seuss. I have already covered the two Grinch movies, which is basically Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas, which I talked about, the live-action movie, which starred Jim Carrey in the title role, and of course the 2018 movie that starred Benedict Cumberbatch. So I have already covered those movies as well. I have yet to cover Horton Hears a Who, and The Cat in the Hat, to which, funny enough, there is going to be a Cat in the Hat animated movie that is going to come out sometime next year by Warner Brothers Studios. So yeah, I have covered both Grinch movies, which of course basically by Dr. Seuss. So not the only Dr. Seuss movie I'm going to talk about on the show. So anyway, as I mentioned, the movie is directed by Chris Renaud, with Cinco Paul and Kevin Dario doing the screenplay, and then of course is also based on the original book that came out in 1971 by Dr. Seuss, with Chris Melandandri and Jeanette Healy as producers. Plus, you also have John Powell doing the musical score, and it was distributed by Universal Pictures and Illumination Entertainment. The movie was released on February 19th, 2012 at Universal Studios Hollywood, and of course it was released in the United States on March 2nd of 2012 in the United States. The film's runtime is 86 minutes, and it had a budget of $70 million, and it grossed over $351.4 million. Now that sounds like a box office success to me, which is pretty good. Now, of course, what were the reactions to this movie? Well, apparently the film received mixed reviews from critics who praised the animation, music, and voice acting, but criticized the characters and story, while the marketing received backlash for its perceived contradictions to the book's original message. So even though this movie was a box office success, a lot of people were split on the movie, most notably because of the story, characters, and of course the perceived contradiction to the book's original message from the marketing. Now to give it more now of course I will have my own thoughts on this movie too, but I do want to dive into the production of this movie. So anyway, The Lorax is the fourth feature film based on a book by Dr. Suess, otherwise known as Ted Geisel, and this movie is the second fully computer animated adaptation, the first one being Horton Hears a Who in 2008, and the first to be released in 3D. Lorax was also Illumination Entertainment's first film presented in IMAX 3D, also known as, and of course adding this punchline, IMAX 3D in publicity for the film. Get it? IMAX 3D, IMAX 3D, wink wink. Very clever right there. So the idea was initiated by Audrey Geisel, who is Dr. Seuss's widow, who had an established partnership with producer Chris Meledandri from a collaboration on Horton Hears a Who. Geisel approached Meledandri when he launched Illumination saying, and I quote, "This is the one I want to do next." End of quote. The film was officially announced in July of 2009 with Meledandri attached as the producer and Geisel as the executive producer. Chris Renaud and Kyle Balda were announced as the director and co-director of the film, while Cinco Paul and Ken Dario, the duo who wrote the script for Horton Hears a Who and Illumination's previous films, were set to write the screenplay, with Danny DeVito being cast as the voice of the Lorax in 2010. Now I'm going to go off topic for a second because there were currently 4 Dr. Seuss there were 5, although technically 4, but there were 4 Dr. Seuss books that were adapted into movies. So the first one was Jim Carrey's Grinch movie, and then you have The Cat in the Hat, the live-action one, which starred Mike Myers as in the title role. And then, of course, you had Horton Hears a Who, to which, funny enough, Jim Carrey voiced Horton the Elephant in that movie. And then The Lorax. However, as I mentioned, there is also a Grinch movie that starred Benedict Cumberbatch. So technically, there were 5 Dr. Seuss movies, but the only difference is, 4 of the books were adapted into movies, with one of the books being adapted twice, not counting the original, I'm not counting the television specials. To be quite honest, I'm talking about Hollywood, the ones that were adapted into Hollywood movies, right? Just saying. But also, The Cat in the Hat is also getting a second feature movie as well from Hollywood too. So we have The Grinch and The Cat in the Hat being adapted into Hollywood movies twice, so to say. But overall, even around then, The Grinch, despite the live-action Grinch doing decent, The Cat in the Hat, the one with Mike Myers, didn't do so well. In fact, Dr. Seuss's widow stated that she doesn't want to see more live-action film adaptations of his husband's work. But of course, I think the animation route is a lot better, to be quite honest, because the critical reception for both the animated Horton Hears a Who movie that came out in 2008, plus the Lorax movie, and of course the 2018 Grinch movie, they did fare better compared to the two live action Hollywood adaptations. Although a little more mixed, but they were still a little better, if you know what I'm saying, right? In the animation medium, right? But anyway, that's enough about that. Let's go back to the Lorax. The film for the Lorax was fully produced at the French studio Illumination McGuff, which was the animation department at McGuff, acquired by Illumination Entertainment in the summer of 2011. DeVito reprised his role in 5 different languages, including the original English audio, and also for the Russian, German, Italian, Catalan, Valencian, Castilian Spanish, and Latin Spanish dub editions, learning his lines phonetically. Who would have thought that Danny DeVito could speak different languages? That's actually impressive right there. Of course, Universal added an environmental message to the film's website after a 4th grade class in Brookline, Massachusetts launched a successful petition through change.org. And that's about it for the production right there. But of course, it doesn't stop there. It doesn't stop there because around that time, Universal Pictures was actually celebrating its 100th anniversary. So this movie actually featured a new Universal logo, which includes a rearranged version of the fanfare originally composed by Jerry Goldsmith, but now this time was composed and arranged by Brian Tyler as part of the studio's 100th anniversary. And the 100th anniversary text is placed under the Universal logo in 2012 for this movie. However, as I mentioned before, this movie received criticism and backlash, most notably with the marketing. Despite the original Lorax being made as a critique of capitalism and pollution, the car company Mazda used the likeness of the Lorax's setting and characters in an advertisement for their CX-5 SUV. This was seen by some as the complete opposite of the work's original message. In response, Stephanie Sperber, president of Universal's partnerships and licensing, said Universal chose to partner with the Mazda CX-5 because it is, and I quote, a really good choice for consumers to make who may not have the luxury or the money to buy electric or buy hybrid. It's a way to take the better environmental choice to everyone. End of quote. On top of that, there were also other different, companies who were throwing their hats into the ring for marketing this movie, including IHOP, Whole Foods, and the United States Environmental Protection Agency, and of course more than 70 different product integration deals for the movie from Universal and Illumination Entertainment. Now, of course, when I saw the marketing for the first time, it didn't bother me that much, but now that I'm older, I can understand why, and I can understand why, because if you really think about it, the movie is based on a popular children's book, right? This movie's based on the original children's book that was written in 1971, and it has an environmental message, right? Because the original Lorax, which came out in 1971, and of course there is a 1972 TV special, it's basically commonly recognized as a fable concerning the danger of humanity's greed causing destruction of the natural environment, using the literary element of personification to create relatable characters for industry, which is basically the character of the Onceler, the environment, the truffula trees, and the environmental activism, the Lorax. And of course, it ends with this quote, unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not. The Lorax exemplifies Dr. Seuss's views on climate change and pollution, teaching children about the importance of doing their part to protect the environment, in this case, in the book, the truffula tree. And to be quite honest, it has a pretty good environmental message. I mean, I mean, I never thought of that in the original because I saw the original Lorax special when I was at Ranchview Elementary School. Like, I was in elementary school when I saw the original Lorax, and I thought it looked it could I thought it was okay. Although at that time I was very confused on the way of how it ended because the original story of the Lorax and of course the special too, it ends with, well, not only the quote, but of course the Onceler giving the boy the last truffula seed and urges him to cultivate a new forest, hoping that the Lorax and the animals will return. And that was basically it. It was left ambiguous, and I thought there was going to be more, right? Nope. That's how the story ended. It ended in an ambiguous way, but now that I'm older, it does leave me thinking, okay, yeah, it's basically left for the audience to decide. Did the boy plant the seed or did he not? I mean, who knows? We don't know. But unfortunately, the 2012 Lorax movie gave us that ending where, spoiler alert, the young boy, to which in the movie his name is Ted, he actually plants the truffula seed. But of course, going back to the marketing, I feel like the biggest offender, in my opinion, was probably the Mazda one. Like, yeah, I could definitely see why a lot of people did not like the marketing for this movie, most notably the Mazda. Come to think of it, we're talking about a film that's talking about, saving the talking about we're talking about a movie that focuses so much on the environment, and yet Illumination decided to do a CX5 SUV Mazda commercial. Now look, I get it that it's a hybrid, which is basically a mix of gas and electric, but I feel like that's the complete opposite. But I feel like that's the complete opposite in my opinion. Like, the car, while yes, it's part electric, but it's also part gas as well. Which, still though, if you know what I'm saying, right? But knowing the fact that gas is still going to be a huge thing when it comes to, doing a lot of stuff like cars and stuff, among many other things. But anyway, that's just my opinion. That being said, let's talk about this movie, shall we? Now, as I mentioned, I have seen this movie before when I was in middle school. Like I said, 13-year-old me saw this movie in theaters. I had a lot of fun with it. But of course, now that I'm older, I do have a bit of a different opinion on it. Although I still enjoy it, but I can understand why a lot of people were split on this movie because of how it deviates so much from the original book's message, right? But I still had fun with this movie. It's still a fun movie. It's a fun movie for the kids to watch, but of course, knowing the fact that the original book plus the original TV special is going to be a lot better than the movie, if you know what I'm saying, right? So, and plus, my first plus, I saw the last time I saw this movie was basically over the weekend. My local ice cream shop, Dairy Queen, which is actually over by my house, they were doing a movie night over there, and they were playing the Lorax. So me and my twin brother Mike, we actually went to go see it, right? And we had a lot of fun with this movie. It was a fun movie to watch. But like I said, now that I'm older, I can understand why this movie split a lot of people. So let's talk about this movie, shall we? Like, this movie opens up. This movie opens up with the Lorax introducing the audience to, well, obviously the world, right? And of course the movie itself. And also, I forgot to mention too, Illumination did a little segment for their logo. Although this time it's with the minions trying to chop down the truffula tree with a chainsaw, and one of the minions tries to take the tree down with a chainsaw, but unfortunately a giant bear crushes the little the minion, and it was so funny. I'm sorry. Oh, the minions are a riot, man. Okay, with that being said, As I mentioned, the Lorax introduced the audience to the movie and, of course, the world itself, which is basically a town called Thneedville, which is basically a city made of plastic. And the people like it that way. The Lorax said it best. And as I mentioned, the Lorax is voiced by Danny DeVito. And I'm just gonna say this right now. The cast in this movie, I enjoyed the cast. Like the cast did a real good job voicing their characters. But I will say though, many of the characters weren't that great. I mean, they're not bad. They're not awful, but they're not as memorable as I. They're not as memorable. I mean, besides a few characters in this movie, but I'll get to more of that later. So anyway, we open in Thneedville, which is basically a walled city that, aside from its citizens, is completely artificial. Everything there is made of plastic, metal, or synthetics. And of course, this was a town without nature and not one living tree. So basically, bottled oxygen is delivered to residents all over town in delivery trucks, as this is their only source of fresh air. Artificial trees are manufactured in factories, and each uses 96 batteries, and the town does not care where the trash and the chemicals go. And the town folks are convinced that their town is perfect and are determined to keep it that way. So then, we get introduced to our main character, or one of or should I say, supporting character. His name is Theodore Ted Wiggins, who is voiced by Zac Efron, and he sets out to find. He buys his little plane. He buys a toy plane. He flies it around the neighborhood, and it lands behind a girl's house named Audrey. And Audrey is being played by Taylor Swift. To which also going off topic, this is a little fun fact right here. The characters of Ted and Audrey, they're basically they're basically named after Ted Geisel and Audrey Geisel, which is basically the husband and wife of Dr. Seuss and Audrey Geisel. Also, Audrey Geisel is Dr. Seuss's second wife. Just to throw that out there to anyone who's listening. So anyway, Audrey surprises Ted with a mural that she painted of a real forest that is basically truffula trees, but laments that she had never seen one in real life. And of course, also to mention, yes, Ted Wiggins has a crush on Audrey, and of course, he listens to Audrey talking about the trees, right? The truffula trees from that forest. And she says that if a guy brings her a real tree, she would probably marry him on the spot. And I'll say this, that line ages pretty well because Taylor Swift, who plays Audrey, got engaged to Travis Kelce. Wow, that line aged pretty well. But of course, Ted's mother, who's voiced by Jenny Slate, says that real trees have no purpose, while their manufactured trees has lights for all seasons and even disco effects. To which the disco lights cringed her son, and Ted was like, "Oh my goodness, please stop." So then, his energetic grandmother, Norma, being voiced by Betty White, suggests he speak with the Onceler. And of course, she says that the Onceler is the only person who knows what happened to the trees and to find one. So Ted would have to find the Onceler. And the grandma tells the story about, she tells the story about where the Onceler lives. And of course, this is referencing to the book as well. And I thought that was a pretty nice way to describe it. Like, it's a bit of a dark moment, but it does match the overall idea of how it does connect to the overall book a little bit. Now, keep in mind, many of the Dr. Seuss books may look and sound lighthearted, but even then, some of his books are dark, And the Lorax is one of those children's book where it is pretty dark, especially in the context of what happened. So I'm just throwing this out there to let you know. And according to the tale, uh, Norma mentions the Onceler will tell anyone about trees if anyone brings 15 cents, a nail, and a shell of a great 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 grandfather's snail. The Onceler will tell everything. Also, to bring this up, while Ted was finding 15 cents, a nail, and a shell of the snail, um, there is a blink and you'll miss it minion minifigure inside Ted's drawer, and it's a funny little moment because it's reminding you that Illumination Studios did the Despicable Me movies. Also, to bring this up, this is Illumination's third full length feature movie. So their first movie was Despicable Me, and then their second movie was Hop. Their third movie was The Lorax, and of course if you have seen this movie in theaters and if you have the DVD, there is a teaser trailer for the second Despicable Me movie, to which that they actually teased that. And also to mention, in the first Despicable Me movie, there was also a tease for the Lorax because Margot, who is one of the characters in Despicable Me, she was wearing a T-shirt that features the Lorax to possibly tease the Lorax movie. So there's a nice little Easter egg right there. So anyway, to move forward, Ted follows the drainage pipes of the town and reaches the one and only exit of Thneedville, which was in an isolated part of the city. The mayor of Thneedville, his name is Lucius O'Hare, voiced by Rob Riggle, who is also the greedy proprietor of a bottled oxygen company, who confronts the boy and pressures him to stay in town. O'Hare had spy cameras all over town, which triggered an alert when Ted tries to leave. And that scene's a bit creepy right there. Like the mayor puts the mayor puts cameras all over town, which I guess you could say it makes sense. But there are some areas where it's like hidden real weird. Like one of them is on a cat, right? It's a robotic cat, and I'm just like, really? That is just weird and creepy at the same time. I mean, some of it I can understand because you want to some of it I can understand, but others, that's kind of pushing it. That's kind of pushing it for someone who is in control of power, right? But of course, it's also Rob Riggle. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, the mayor in this movie. I mean, not as memorable. I mean, he does get a few memorable lines. He does get a few memorable moments, but at the same time, he's just there, in my opinion. But I always like to get a chuckle out of Rob Riggle. So anyway, O'Hare's company sells the bottled air that is the town's only source of fresh air, or fresh oxygen. Explained that trees and the oxygen they produce pose a threat to his business. And of course, knowing the fact, trees provide fresh air, to which the mayor is basically offended by it. So O'Hare tries to intimidate Ted into staying town, but Ted is determined to complete his quest for a real tree. So Ted sets off outside of Thneedville in search of the Onceler with the items. He discovers that the outside world is a contaminated, emptied wasteland. He drives through the desolate landscape littered with stumps of chopped trees full of pollution and smog, and reaches a cottage in the middle of nowhere. The cottage had Onceler's nameplate on it, and Ted rings the bell, and the Onceler tries to throw Ted out, but Ted says that he wants to know about the trees. So the Onceler is being voiced by Ed Helms, and when he sees Ted for the first time, he's like, "Who are you and what are you doing here? Get out of here, and don't let the boots hit you on the way out." I do find it funny that the Onceler has built some crazy inventions. Like one of them has like a boot that can like hit someone on the way out. That part got a chuckle out of me when that boot kicked Ted from behind. But of course Ted was like, listen, I want to know about the trees. And the one slur hears Ted mentioning the trees and is like, trees? But I didn't think people will still care about trees. But Ted is like, well, that's me, the guy that still cares. So anyway, the one slur says that the trees are all gone because of him. So he agrees to tell Ted about the trees if he listens to the story over multiple visits. And this takes 3 different visits, mind you. Because in the book, there's only 1 visit. In the movie, 3 visits. And I'm pretty sure that's just to extend the runtime, because this is basically the Onceler's flashback as he's basically setting off to find the trees. To find the trees to build his, his business, selling needs, right? So anyway, Ted continues to sneak out of O'Hara's sight with the encouragement of his grandmother and learns more of the history of the trees. So over Ted's various visits, the Onceler recounts the story of how he departed his family to make his fortune. The Onceler wanders the world looking for the perfect material for his new invention, the need, and after stumbling upon a lush truffula tree forest, while he is basically singing and playing guitar while driving his wagon with a donkey. The Onceler is basically, doing his road song, on a guitar. He's basically singing na 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 ba 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 ba. A bit catchy right there, if you know what I'm saying, right? So anyway, he befriends the native animals by serving them marshmallows. Although at first the animals were not too pleasant with the Onceler. Although at first, they kind of give him a cute introduction to the forest, which I'll admit, the overall atmosphere and animation in that forest is really good. It's very, very good and colorful at the same time. Also to mention too that the forest animals, their voices are actually provided by Chris Renaud, who actually plays some of the minions in the Despicable Me movies. Keep in mind, the animals in this movie, you have the bears, the geese, and the fish as well. But they do have names. They do have names. Like the bears in the Lorax, they're basically called barbaloots, to which they are cute bear-like creatures with shaggy fur who eat truffula fruit and play in the shade. They represent the innocent victims of environmental destruction. And then you got these geese, or should I say swans. They're basically called swami swans, to which they are long-tailed birds with orange bodies and yellow heads and beaks. They swim, fly, and perch in the truffula trees, and of course smog from the Onceler's factory chokes them, making them unable to sing. But that's later on. And then of course you got the fish, who are basically the humming fish. The ones that were singing, they were singing those singing fish right there in this movie. It's cute. It's really cute. It's a cute little introduction right there. But of course, as I mentioned, the animals were not kind to the Onceler once they realized that he's taking out all of his, garden materials that almost killed some of the animals. Like the hedge trimmers almost decapitated a small baby swan. And of course, he had a shaving razor that actually shaved off one of the barbaloots. But of course, they're all about to attack, and until he begins to befriend them by serving them marshmallows. Now, of course, once the Onceler decides to chop down the tree, he doesn't realize that after cutting down a tree, there is a mystical, slightly annoying creature known as the Lorax, who's basically a mystical orange furry, humanoid creature with a yellow mustache, who is both the guardian of the truffula forest and acts as a voice of reason. And of course, it's basically, Danny DeVito, right? Danny DeVito voicing the Lorax. He's like, I'm the Lorax, guardian of the forest. I speak for the trees. But the monster was like, yeah, I don't buy that. But hey, I got something that you'll definitely like. Marshmallows. Yummy, 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 yummy. But of course, the Lorax doesn't even buy it. He's like, how dare you? Well, I'll say this. The Lorax deliver a better how dare you than Greta Thunberg. But even then, the Lorax accuses the Onceler for saying, hey, have you chopped down this tree? But the Onceler is like, what's that? But of course, frames a little baby Barbalud, and the Onceler is like, I think he did it. Like, he drops an axe on top of the Barbalud. I don't know why, but it was a bit funny right there. Oh, man. But even then, the animals did a little funeral for that tree, which is actually pretty new, because in the original story, there wasn't really a funeral for that for that first tree he chopped down. Like, the Lorax just pops out of the tree, like literally, just pops out of there, and of course just tells the Onceler, you need to leave. I'm the guardian of the forest. I speak for the trees. But of course, the Onceler ignores the Lorax's advice or warnings, right? So of course, it is the chopping of the trees that summons the Lorax to the forest, and the Lorax claims that he speaks on behalf of the trees. As I mentioned, yes. Onceler wanted to use the leaves of the truffula tree to create his product called the Thneed, sort of an all-purpose sweater, and the Lorax urges Onceler to leave the forest, but the Onceler refuses. Eventually, the Onceler promises not to chop another tree down, and the two seem to begin a friendship of sorts, because what happened later on is that the Lorax and the animals was trying to float the Onceler away on a river while he was sleeping, but of course it went south pretty quick because Pipsqueak, who is the baby bear Barbalud, gets stuck on the bed, and the Lorax is like, you gotta be kidding me. Can that baby bear swim? Unfortunately, the animal's like, nope, of course he can't swim. Hang on, Pipsqueak, we're coming to get you. Although thankfully they were able to rescue Pipsqueak and the Onceler. But of course, the Onceler barely dies by going over a waterfall and landing on the ground pretty hard. And the Lorax bringing the Onceler back to life by using those the bears as, I forgot what they're called, but like they literally shocked the Onceler with the electricity just to bring him back to life. So then the young businessman's Thneed invention becomes a major success, and Onceler's family arrives to participate in the business. The family includes his mother, Isabella, being played by Nazim Pedra, Uncle Eb, being played by Stefan Tobolowsky, Aunt Griselda, being played by Marie Wendell, and the twin brothers Brett and Chet, being played by Danny Cooksey. And at first, keeping his promise, the Onceler continues Thneed production by harvesting the truffula tree tufts in a sustainable manner. However, soon, his greedy and lazy relatives convince him to resume chopping down the trees, due to how long harvesting the tufts takes. Over time, the Onceler's deforestation spirals into a mass overproduction. Flush with wealth, the Onceler rationalizes his short-sighted needs into arrogant self-righteousness, and the Lorax's helpless protests do not stop him. This leads to the Onceler polluting the sky, river, and landscape until the last truffula tree falls. Finally, the Onceler is distraught, with the region uninhabitable because of his business's pollution. He is left ruined and abandoned by his own family and becomes a recluse. And the Lorax sends the animals away, including the Onceler's donkey as well. They were sent away to search for a better place to live before departing himself into the sky, leaving only a stone cut word, unless. And at the end of the story, the Onceler understands the meaning behind the Lorax's last message and gives Ted the last truffula seed, in hopes that he can plant it and makes others care about real trees once more. Ted's desire to impress Audrey is now a personal mission to remind his town of the importance of nature. And then Ted goes back to town. Ted goes back to town, but of course he knows that there are cameras everywhere. So what he does is he takes down the cat camera with his motorcycle. But apparently, while the cat was damaged, the camera was still operational. So O'Hare, determined not to have trees undercut his business, takes heavy-handed steps, such as covering Audrey's nature paintings and closing off the door that Ted uses to see the Onceler, and forcibly searching Ted's room for the seed. And Ted enlists his family and Audrey to help plant the seed, which has begun to germinate after coming into contact with water. Also, it's also funny too is that when Ted's mom walks into the room, realizing that the mayor and his bodyguards were forcibly tearing apart the room, she was like, "What is going on over there?" And the mayor was like, "This doesn't concern you. Get back downstairs." And Ted's mom was like, "Excuse me, going back downstairs? I don't care what you have to say, you baby man. Get out of the house." And I find it funny too that his mom really stood up for her son. And I'm just gonna be honest, that part got me to laugh. The mayor should not have done that, but of course, they had to put a villain in there somewhere. So anyway, O'Hare and his employees pursued the distance until they managed to elude him and reach the town center. Unfortunately, their attempt to plant the seed is interrupted by O'Hare, who rallies the population to stop them. To convince them otherwise, Ted takes an earth mover and rams down a section of the city wall to reveal the environmental destruction outside. Horrified at the sight and inspired by Ted's conviction, the crowd defies O'Hare with his own henchmen, expelling him from the town. The seed is finally planted and Audrey kisses Ted in the cheek. Time passes and the land starts to recover. The trees grow, the animals return, and the redeemed Onceler is happily reunited with the Lorax. And that is basically it. That is the overall breakdown of this movie right here. Now, overall thoughts. I had a lot of fun with this movie. I thought this movie was fun. Even when I was 13 years old, I enjoyed this movie. It was a lot of fun to watch. I like the voice acting. I like the music from John Powell. Even the colorful animation is really good too. However, now now as an adult, I can understand why this movie is split. Well, I mentioned the good parts of this movie. Like, I enjoyed the music from John Powell. I liked the voice acting overall, and I thought the colorful animation was really good. I enjoyed it. That's the stuff that I really liked from this movie. Now, of course, going into the film's criticism, the marketing. I already mentioned the marketing, so I could take that. I could take that out of the equation. But I will say though, the overall story. Well, if you take, let's just say, if you look at it as a normal family movie, the story is fine. But as a film that is adapted from the book, written by Dr. Suess, and of course the television special as well, the story is not that great. I mean, it's not bad, but it's just not that great of a story because, think about it, the original story is a lot dark, but it has a meaningful message right there. It's kind of like, it's like a warning, right? It's like a warning, like how the Onceler's actions have consequences, right? Like, yes, the Onceler wants to do a business, but of course, he doesn't realize his actions. Like, he's greedy, and his own pride took over from his own fault. Even the Lorax was trying to warn him. He was trying to save him. He wasn't just saving the trees. He was trying to save the Onceler from his own downfall, right? There was a moment in the original where the Onceler was literally having a debate with himself about what's going on, even to the point where he asked the Lorax, "What do you want me to do? You want me to shut down the business, fire hundreds of people and all sorts?" And the Lorax is like, "I do not know. It's not my calling." And that's a pretty good point because this is more on the Onceler deciding that, not the Lorax. I mean, the Lorax can't decide for him. It has to be the Onceler's decision, at least in the original. But in this movie, it's a lot different because the Onceler is more the Onceler is more of a villain in this movie compared to the original, right? Like, the Onceler is basically a villain in this movie, which I guess I don't. Actually, I could see him as more of an antagonist because the main villain is basically Mayor O'Hare in the Lorax movie. But they basically made the Onceler a villain, but I see him as more of an antagonist because the mayor is basically the main villain. But even then, the way how they wrote his character, I mean, yeah, they still had his greed and pride, but he just doesn't like. But what is lacking is basically, debating on whether or not to shut down the factory, realizing what's going on, like realizing what's going on. And in fact, because I was also split on the songs, there is a musical number that was actually cut from the film that talks about that literally talks about the Onceler's company trying to make the company big, right? He's talking about he wants the company to be big, right? Up until and the Lorax warning the Onceler, right? But even then, like the movie, but even then, they still have the Onceler regretting what happened. But on top of that, he still gives Ted the little seed. But of course, the movie doesn't even stop there. Like the original story and special, it ends with the little boy walking back to town, and whether or not he plants the seed or not, and that's how it ends. This movie, it ends with Ted planting the seed, to which, I mean, I kind of liked it because it does give a happy ending, realizing that, okay, yes, this has been long enough, let's plant this seed, that way we can bring the trees back, and of course, fresh air as well, to which the mayor was also offended because the fresh air from the tree gives out for free instead of, being bought, right? I mean, really? I mean, I kind of like the ending because I do like how it ends happy. I do like a happy ending, but even then, it does make me wonder if it does make me wonder what it will be like if the movie ends like the original book and TV special, right? It does make me wonder. But other than that, that's my criticism. But anyway, the movie itself, it does expand, it does extend, but a part of me wishes how different the story would have been. In fact, I heard it was supposed to be a lot darker. It was supposed to be a lot darker, right? Which actually, funny enough, this will definitely segue into the songs, right? So the songs in this movie were mixed. I thought the songs in this movie, I thought they were catchy overall. There were 5 songs in this movie. Like, we have Thneedville, This Is the Place, Everybody Needs a Thneed, How Bad Can I Be, and Let It Grow. So that's 5 songs, right? Actually 6 if you count Let It Grow, Celebrate the World, right? Which is played during the end credits. However, I found out that there were actually original demo songs, like Let It Grow, Gospel Ending. We almost got a gospel song out of that, huh? And then you got Thneedville original demo, the Onceler's Traveling Madness, which is basically him singing na 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 ba 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 da 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 da. So that part is extended. And then of course you got I Love Nature original demo, and then of course You Need a Thneed original. And then, of course, Nobody Needs a Thneed original demo, and then Biggering original demo. Now, I have not listened to many of these demos. I mean, I have listened to a couple, like the Let It Grow Gospel Ending, the Thneedville original, and Biggering. The one that stood out to me the most is the Biggering one. Now, in my opinion, I have listened to that one many times, and I didn't even know this song existed up until this point. And when I listened to it, I was like, oh my goodness, this song is really good, but it would fit a lot better in that movie. and it would fit a lot better, and it sticks better in that movie, and it kind of connects more to the original book plus TV special too. And this song is really dark too. Now look, I love the song "How Bad Can I Be." I thought it was a fine song in that movie. I mean, how bad can I be? I mean, that is a catchy number right there. It's a catchy number. I mean, a lot of people have listened to this song, and it's like it's a fun song. It's a fun upbeat song, but when you compare that song to Biggering, oh my goodness, Biggering would wipe the floor with "How Bad Can I Be." In fact, someone actually combined both "How Bad Can I Be" and Biggering into one song, and it actually sounds pretty good. There's actually different videos that you could actually look up on "How Bad Can I Be" and Biggering. Now, as for Biggering, it's a lot dark compared to "How Bad Can I Be." Like most of the lyrics in that song do appear in "How Bad Can I Be," but the way how it's set up, it's basically the Wensler, singing to himself, "I need a bigger chair. I need a bigger desk." Basically, he wants something big, right? But he keeps singing, "I'm biggering, yeah, I'm biggering," until the Lorax comes in to warn, the one, and until the Lorax comes in to warn the Wensler, telling him, "Listen." See, he's telling him, "Listen, you can't blame greed, right? There is a nasty worm in there, and it's called pride." And he's talking to the Wensler, who completely ignores the warnings from the Lorax. And it was also a nice detail too. It was also a nice detail too. He does wear the green suit like in the original, which does resemble the money, but also greed as well. But even then, is when the Wensler is in an elevator and descends down to the bottom floor, almost reminiscing of him going down to almost reminiscing of going down to the underworld, right? And there's actually storyboards of the Biggering song that you can actually look up. There's a YouTube video where there's a storyboard for that song. And then of course it does end with it does end with the entire forest being desolated, right? Also to mention this too, the song itself, it's very operatic. It's a rock and roll opera. It's a rock and roll opera, right? It's like Bohemian Rhapsody, but with an environmental message, right? Like the song "Biggering." My goodness, that song should have been in the movie. I can't believe Illumination and Universal Studios cut that song out. I'm like, that song should have stayed in the movie because it really proves the point of the original story's overall message. And I could at least I would have been okay with this movie if they didn't cut this song out. But anyway, but that whole song though, I feel like would have made the film a lot more dark. Now look, I get it that this wants to be a family movie, but of course we're talking about a film that is adapted from the original book with an environmental message, right? And I think that song would have fit pretty well into this movie. Heck, I would have been okay with "How Bad Can I Be" and Biggering being put into the movie, right? It would have been a lot better. But this is just my opinion, though. But anyway, yeah, I enjoyed the songs, but I'll admit, it was just more, it feels more like Hollywood-esque. It's basically more of a Hollywood feeling, right? They want to make this, a musical, which I don't mind. I mean, to be fair, the original special was a musical, but at the very least, the music connected more to the film's message of the environment compared to what the 2012 movie had, right? Like I still enjoy the songs. I mean, "How Bad Can I Be?" It's pretty catchy, and then you got like "Na na 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 na," and then you got the Thneedville opening, to which it's pretty upbeat, but at the same time, like, it was all right. I mean, it was all right. And then what else? Everybody needs a need, which I don't know why, but and other than that, that's pretty much. And then of course, Let It Grow. I thought Let It Grow was fun, including the one in the credits. But I do find it funny how in the Let It Grow, the mayor's parts, I do find it real funny. That part, I do find it funny how the mayor changes the lyrics and basically, at one point he thought at one point he was like, okay. At one point he was singing about him being part of the town, hearing about the seed, and he was like, nah, I say we let it die, let it die, let it die, let it shrivel up and hey, what's going on? How come you all are not singing? That part was pretty funny. Oh man. Even one of the townsfolk called the mayor a little greedy dirtbag. Oh my goodness. But overall, the songs are fine. I feel like, yeah, they are pretty upbeat. They're pretty upbeat, which is fine. But I don't know. In my opinion, I feel like Thneedville is probably the lowest of the bunch, in my opinion. But that's just me. But also to point this out, I feel like Let It Grow is basically a precursor to Let It Go, because about a year later, in 2013, we got the Frozen movie that Disney did, and we got the song Let It Go. It almost sounds like a precursor of Let It Go. Like, we got Let It Grow from the Lorax, and now we got Let It Go, right? I think that's pretty funny right there. But anyway, that's enough about the songs. But of course, the characters in this movie, the characters were not that great in this movie either. I mean, for example, Ted and Audrey, I thought they were okay, but they weren't as, I wouldn't say, but they're not as memorable. I mean, Ted is basically the kid from the original book, although that kid never got a name, so I guess the filmmakers decided to name him Ted. And like I said, Zac Efron, Taylor Swift, Betty White, Ed Helms, Danny DeVito, Jenny Slate, Rob Riggle, among many other actors. I thought they did a fine job of voicing their characters. But Audrey and Ted, they were okay, but they weren't as, they were just there being like, they were just there being the couple. That sort of went somewhere basically at the end. At the end of the movie, because Audrey gave Ted a kiss on the cheek. But of course, if I were to point out one character that I actually liked, it would be the grandma. I mean, to be fair, it's Betty White. I love Betty White. You could definitely tell Betty White was having a lot of fun in that movie. I mean, she plays the grandma, and the grandma really set the story straight for Ted. Like, she literally knows about the trees, right? She literally knows about the Onceler in the trees, right? I mean, I guess you could say that she was a character who saw the Onceler for the first time. I mean, it's never specified if she was actually there. I mean, we never saw her in the flashbacks, but I'll say this, I feel like she is the one character where I liked, and especially sent Ted on that mission to get the tree, right? I do like her action scene where she was basically skiing down a snowy mount during the chase sequence from the mayor. I thought that was pretty funny. Even Audrey was like, seriously, how cool is your grandma? I mean, hey, grandparents can be cool too. Just saying. But anyway, moving forward, I didn't really care for the mom as much. I mean, she was just basically there. She's just basically, your typical mom she's basically the typical mom, you see, like, she doesn't even think the whole tree thing is ridiculous. And she was like, Ted, what are you talking about? Ted, what are you talking about? We have a tree of our own. I mean, you see these real live trees, they come out of the ground and they do what? They do nothing. I mean, she mentioned something like that in the movie, and I'm just like, really? I mean, trees are pretty much real, right? And then, of course, the Onceler. Now, let's be honest. The Onceler and then of course we move on to the Onceler. Now, I feel now the Onceler for the most part when he was telling the story, right? I thought the Onceler when he was telling the story was good. But once they do the flashback and we see the face, I'm just like, do they really have to show his face? Like, I mean, I don't mind seeing his face at the end. I mean, I don't mind him seeing his face at the end, but of course, I can understand there's gonna be some changes, right? Like where it's a Hollywood movie. They're trying, there's gonna be some changes, but at the same time, I'm like, did they really need to show his face in the flashback? I mean, they could have just keep it as a surprise. They could have just keep his face as a surprise towards the end, just have that at the end, right? I mean, I thought him revealing himself in the end was actually okay with the little mustache, right? I mean, he's still got the green suit on, at least when he's telling the story. But when he's going on his quest to find the trees, he's just basically a hippie, right? He's basically a hippie with a guitar, right? Na 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 na. I still like that song. I still like that little song. But my goodness, did they really have to turn the Onceler into a hippie? Like, come on, man. Like the Onceler, like in the original, the Onceler. I mean, he wasn't really a hippie. He was just, really wanted to do business. He was greedy. He was full of pride. He was greedy. Up until a point where he comes to realize what he's doing, right? What he's doing, even debates himself about the situation, the animals suffering, and of course, the animals suffering and realizing, okay, I see your point. Up until the last tree coming down. I mean, the movie did that, but they still have him as this hippie-like character, right? But he does have some memorable. But at the very least, he does get a couple of memorable moments. I guess his "How Bad Can I Be" song is memorable. Plus that little guitar song that he was doing. I like that. Especially, and of course, when he's telling the story, I thought that was good too. Now we move on to the Lorax. Now look, I like Danny DeVito as the Lorax, but my goodness, I feel like the Lorax is more of a side character rather than a main character, right? Like, it's the freaking Lorax, right? Like, it's the title of the book, the special, and the movie. And they completely sidelined him. In my opinion, he's completely sidelined throughout the movie, right? And the main character is basically the Onceler, in my opinion. Like, the Onceler is the one who is telling the story, right? But even then, throughout the movie, I'm just like, who's the main character? The Onceler, the Lorax, or Ted? It's like there's so much going on. I feel like the Onceler is the main character because he was the because he was the guy who went to the forest and chopped down the trees, right? To start his business, right? And then the Onceler pops in, and then of course you got the kid. I mean, I feel like the Onceler is the main character, in my opinion, though. But even then, the Lorax, he was supposed to be like a peaceful character, even though he's sending out warnings to tell the Onceler to leave. To leave, but even then he does contradict himself. But even then he is a bit hypocritical because he's supposed to be a guy who is supposed to be peaceful, right? But of course he's also someone who wants to like forcibly get rid of someone by taking him away while he's sleeping, right? Like, he almost drowned. He tries to kill the Onceler in this movie, right? Like, Like the Onceler almost went over this waterfall while landing hard on the ground, right? Literally, almost creating literally giving him a body count, right? Like, yeah, that's the that's the Lorax for you. Like, what a great character, right? Lorax, supposed to be a peacekeeper of the forest, turns psychopath, right? Because the Onceler doesn't leave, right? What a great character, right? Like, seriously, even in the original, the Lorax was a lot more peaceful, even still giving out warnings, but he doesn't do anything violent, right? The only thing that the Lorax did was basically him trying to kill the Onceler in this movie. Like, to me, that doesn't really fit his character at all. But that's just my opinion, though. I guess the writers kind of did that just to, get that PG rating. Also, speaking of which, the mayor in this movie says, "Damn it." Well, there you have it, folks. There's your PG rating. Oh, man. Yeah, they got the PG rating right there by the mayor saying, "Damn it." And that was at the end of the movie when he was trying to chase down Ted, Audrey, and the grandma. I still enjoy, but going back to the Lorax, I still enjoy Danny DeVito's performance. But even then, I wish they written his character a lot better just to make him a little more, peaceful, while also keeping in the nature of him warning the Onceler of what's gonna happen, right? Minus the violence, okay? Just saying. But anyway, also to mention the mayor in this movie, I thought the mayor in this movie was pretty funny. I thought the mayor of this movie was pretty funny. Like, I didn't really care for him as much, but of course, it's Rob Riggle. Rob Riggle plays the mayor. From the point of view, you can definitely tell that Rob Riggle is having a lot of fun. Although I will say his design for this movie, he does look like Edna Mode if he clashed with one of the Three Stooges, right? Probably Mo from the Three Stooges. Like, he looks like Edna Mode and Mo from the Three Stooges combined, but put Rob Riggle in it, and then he got a funny villain, right? The mayor is just basically a funny villain. He does get some funny moments. Like, he gets some funny moments, particularly in the end when he's trying to chase down Ted, right? And then, of course, him singing, "Let it die, let it shrivel up." Like, that part was pretty funny until he gets sent away on this rocket out of town by his own bodyguards. Oh my goodness. That's just funny. And also to mention too, the mayor was also one of the townsfolk when the Onceler was famous. Like when the whole forest was desolated, like, the mayor was pretty young. He was basically cleaning up the town, and he was young, wearing braces, when he notices that when he's trying to come up with an idea for the next $1 million deal, he sees the billboard that mentions Thneed, right? And the mayor was like, "Yeah, I wonder." And that's basically his idea to make Thneedville, which is basically, a town that's basically metal and plastic, and no trees in sight. And then of course, but I feel like my biggest disappointment in terms of characters is basically the Onceler's family. Like, my goodness, the Onceler's family in this movie, I did not care at all. Like, the Onceler's family literally manipulated the Onceler into, cutting down the trees, instead of, like, the Onceler being so prideful and greedy at the same time, right? Like it's the Onceler's family that literally pushed him to, chop down all the trees, right? Like, especially the Onceler's mom. Like, the Onceler's mom in that movie was absolutely, in my opinion, the worst character in this movie. Like, the Onceler's mom really pushed the Onceler to the brink of chopping down the trees. And I didn't even care for the Onceler's brothers nor his, I guess, uncle, I believe. He also has an aunt, too, to which I do find it funny that the Lorax almost fights the aunt, and the one star is like, whoa, 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 whoa. You wouldn't hit a woman. And the Lorax is like, huh? That's a woman? That part got me to chuckle because it got me thinking. That part got me to chuckle because of how Danny DeVito delivered that line. But also at the same time, has the Lorax ever seen a human being before? I don't really get that part. But I mean, I don't really know. But I'm just pointing that out. But I thought it was kind of funny at the same time. But other than that, I didn't really care for the Onceler's family at all. Not at all. But even then, the Onceler's family in the original, they were all wearing the same green suits, right? They were all wearing the same green suits, right? Keeping it ambiguous, right? This movie just is basically like, here's the Onceler's family. They're just there. They're pushing the Onceler to like, hey, let's chop down all these trees. Get the business going. Make that money. But anyway, that's enough about these characters. But other than that, that's pretty much my overall negatives of this movie. But overall, that's pretty much it for my negatives of this movie. But if I were to rank this movie, I'd give it a 7 out of 10. That may seem high, but the movie is still fun on its own. Like, if you see this as a family film, it's still good. It's a good family film. But as a movie that is based on a Dr. Seuss book with a message, with a good environmental message, and the different tone, then I'll say this: it's not a great story. It's a good story, but not a great story by any means. I think it was just because Illumination and Universal really got in the way so much. Like, they literally changed up a lot of things for the story, right? Just to make it more kid-friendly, if you know what I'm saying, instead of like going deep into this movie. But anyway, that's about it for that part. But other than that, that is about it. That's a wrap. But other than that, that's basically about it. So there you have it, folks. That is my take on the 2012 Dr. Seuss's The Lorax movie. Now overall, I had fun with this movie. Sure, I wish the movie was a little different, but it was still a fun movie to watch overall. So anyway, that will be a wrap for this episode. So to anyone who is listening, what did you guys think of the 2012 Lorax movie? Did you like the movie? Did you not like the movie at all? I would love to hear your thoughts. But anyway, that will be a wrap for this episode. Thank you all for tuning in to Codo Cinema. I'm your host, Mark Codo, aka Codoman. Remember to watch movies and stay positive.